That better? Oh, we've got an echo now. You want to hear it twice? How are we now? Are we all right? Yeah. Before we move to the agenda, I would invite our officers supporting this meeting to introduce themselves. Lisa.
Lisa Davis, Senior Planning Lawyer and Legal Advisor to the committee.
Bill Norman, Assistant Director for Planning.
Abby Marwood, Group Manager for Planning and Development.
Lewis Humphreys, Principal Planning Officer.
Moving on to our housekeeping rules. Restroom facilities are available on this floor for the ladies and halfway down the main stairwell for the gentlemen. In the event of the fire alarm sounding, officers will escort everyone to the nearest point in the rear car park. Please ensure when you are addressing this meeting that you do so through your microphone at all times. Members of the public are free to leave the meeting at any time, and our planning support officers will escort you downstairs. And finally, please be advised that abuse or intimidation of any kind will not be tolerated. Anyone who is deemed to breach this requirement will be warned and asked to refrain, and if the behaviour persists, they will be asked to leave the meeting. So first, to receive apologies for absence and notifications of any substitutions.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillor David Scoots, with Councillor Ariamba substituting.
To sign the minutes of the last meeting held on the 4th of February, do I have committee's agreement to sign these, please? Yeah. Is it the 25th? What is it today?
Yes.
Before we move to individual declarations of interest in respect of any item on this agenda, I will ask Lisa to give the standing declarations.
Thank you, Chairman. For public information, I'll confirm that standing declarations of interest will be recorded within the minutes for this meeting for all members of this committee who are also members of Lincolnshire County Council, the South East Lincolnshire Joint Strategic Planning Committee and representatives of the internal drainage boards.
Does any member of the committee have any further declaration of interest to make in respect of any item on this agenda, please? Councillor Dorian.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do have an interest in this application. Officers have spoken to me about the application, so I wouldn't like it to appear as if I've predetermined, so I will recuse myself when the item comes up. Thank you.
Nobody else? No. To receive any written questions from members of the public.
Thank you, Chairman. One question was received but has been rejected under Council Procedure Rule 10.4.
Thank you, Lisa. That concludes the preliminary items, and we will now move to part 2 of the agenda and address the planning application for determination. So our first piece of business today is planning application B240515 on page 35 of the agenda, and will be presented by our Senior Planning Officer, Lewis Humphreys.
Thank you, Chair. This application is here before you as a result of a deferral from the last committee meeting. It's proposed residential development, 200 affordable houses with associated open space, parking and an ancillary building. You should have the report in front of you as the agenda, which is just a report on the recent just an update from the previous committee and on the reasons for deferral. Appendix A to that report is the previous committee report that was before members last time, and the supplementary report to that same item is at Appendix B. Just by way of brief update, we've had the objection from Links Fire and Rescue has been withdrawn. We've had confirmation that the 9-metre IDB easement on the southern boundary is being complied with, and the agents have confirmed that the technical consent with the IDB is being obtained. And the agent has also confirmed that it's their intent to maintain that that boundary, that drain along the western boundary, along with the other new drainage assets. I'm just going to briefly run through, because I know we've got some members that weren't here previously. This is the site location plan. The north is to the left of your screen, so that's Wainfleet Road running along there. Access will come in through there, and then you've got Summersby Green, Summersby Way, and Sandringham Gardens housing estates that back onto the site. Just by way of brief context, it's this part of the green field here with access coming in from the A52. Those housing estates that were mentioned before, and there's a nearby school here. This is the proposed layout, slightly amended plan to show the 9-metre easement, which I'll show you in more detail next. This site layout and design is substantially the same as 2 previous approvals on the same site. You'll notice the main road that comes through the site is intended to be adopted, with these little spurs across it, and then these tan private drives here. As I say, Links Fire and Rescue have withdrawn their previous objection in connection with the standard of that road, following confirmation that the roads are going to be built to LCC's adoptable standard. This is the IDB easement. I've just amended the plan to show, by way of a more obvious line, where that 9-metre is. There's no development within that easement zone, and you've got the IDB drain along that southern boundary there. The agents provided a statement to address the drainage matters on the western boundary. This is just an extract from the statement that's on the website and makes part of the planning file, but just confirms that that drain will be maintained as part of the wider maintenance for landscaping and drainage features going to be included within the application. The main issue on this application remains whether or not the issues of viability that were raised previously are acceptable. There's some history on the site. B170511 was an initial outline planning application for 200 dwellings, subject to a Section 106 agreement. The details of that agreement are in the agenda at Appendix A. There was a subsequent reserve matters approval, and then a further variation to that reserve matters, B240242, which saw some changes to the layout, which are basically the same form as what's in front of you now. That Section 106 on the original outline had those details in there put before it. We had a viability appraisal submitted with this application that was on the basis of the contributions requested in this Section 106 agreement. We've had further requests for a new 106 agreement from the NHS, from LCC for education, and from LCC for public transport. These contributions are higher than those that were in the viability appraisal. That viability appraisal has been independently assessed. Basically, in simple terms, what we look at is the expected revenue minus the total cost minus developer profit gives a residual land value. There is a benchmark land value figure. It's calculated based on a standard methodology, so it is not the price that is paid for the land. It's a standard figure. They provide details about that, and then the independent valuer that we have consulted has also calculated a separate benchmark land value figure, and he has confirmed basically that the residual land value is less than the benchmark in a scenario either with or without contributions, so the development doesn't support contributions here. Members just asked for a little bit more detail last time about designs of the properties, so I've just included some additional plans here. So this is the materials plan. It's the only real change to the design here. Basically, it's a color coordinated plan to show the mix of houses across the site. The red, orange, and yellow ones are to be taken on by Longhurst, who are one of the social register providers. The blues are the Housing 21, which will be the over 50s, over 55s provision, and then the remaining ones in purple and pink are to be built by the developer, and my understanding is to be taken on by either affordable rent or as a different tenure. We will look at a unilateral undertaking as part of, should committee approve this, it will be subject to a unilateral undertaking that would agree the details for the affordable housing. Just to run you through some of the elevations in particular, give you a few examples. There's a lot of different house types, so I'll not show them all. This is plot 1. This is the Wainfleet Road frontage, so this is the dwelling that's on there. Substantially the same as what's already been approved on site through previous applications. These are a couple of the Housing 21 bungalows. They sit on the corner of those squares. There are a few maisonettes, so 4 one-person houses in a block. And then these are a couple of the semi-detached houses, again in a red brick and a buff brick. And lastly, a couple of semi-detached bungalows. I've picked a range from across the site. I can show you in more detail what all of those are if members want it. But as I say, these house types have already been substantially agreed, subject to minor changes in the materials that are before you now. And one last property, that's that will sit along the central road. There is a community building proposed. There's a condition recommended within there that would tie this occupation basically to the Housing 21 residents. So it includes a manager that will serve those residents and a small social space for those, but it's not intended that it will be used either more widely by the development, by residents of the development, or by visiting members of the public. And there's, as I say, conditions to secure that. There are highway improvements that are still secured by this proposal. Where there's a Ghost Island right turn. We've requested some details in connection with that. But they'll need technical approval from the Highway Authority. There's a proposed footway along the front. That remains one of the issues that we've had comments on, but there's no further update from those objections since the meeting before. It includes a link through between those two houses as well that would serve pedestrians. This is the indicative drainage layout. Again, there is a condition that will require further details to be agreed. One of the matters that was raised by residents was about the potential drainage along the northern boundary, which doesn't have any features in and of itself. So we've recommended a condition to require a drainage scheme to be agreed, basically to secure that there isn't an adverse impact on there. What this drainage scheme does is filter the water from the roads, from the houses, out to these attenuation ponds on either side, and then the attenuation ponds filter down towards the site to a larger attenuation pond at the bottom, where they then connect to the IDB drain. So effectively, that western drain along the side of the site becomes redundant. It only takes, as far as I'm aware, it only takes water from the fields at the minute, and that water will be directed elsewhere post-development. So I'll just run you very quickly through some photos. Access from the site looking west towards Boston, and that same view of the access from the opposite side of Wainfleet Road. Some further views of the site. You can see the Stump and Boston Town in the distance, and the site would sit in this gap here behind the properties on Wainfleet Road. This is the proposed siting for the footpath link that cuts through between a couple of existing properties, and again from the opposite side. From the rear, photos of the rear properties of Wainfleet Road, there is a condition on there requiring details of boundary treatments, for properties along this northern boundary, because as you can see, there are a mix of boundary treatments along there, some of which are quite low, There was a matter relating to the bowls club. This is an informal access that's currently between the two. My understanding is that the agents have committed to fencing that off, so it wouldn't be an access anymore. It's not required to make the development acceptable from a highways perspective, and I believe would also be covered by the boundary treatments condition that I mentioned before. That's the western boundary with the bungalows on Summersby Green and Summersby Way. You can see it's landscaped towards the north, moving down into those lower boundary treatments there. This would have the drainage features in closest proximity to it, so these properties aren't overlooked. That's the southern end of the western boundary. Where this new fence is here is where the access point through in the southwest corner would be, that would connect to Summersby Way. A condition requiring details of that to be agreed, including lighting, is in there as well. This is the drain along that western boundary that have caused some concerns. These are photos from a few weeks ago, but as you can see, are currently being maintained. It's currently being maintained, and the intent is that will continue to be so. And that access point again, just on the left-hand side of the image. This is the IDB drain along the south, and as I said, the agents have confirmed that 9-metre easement. And one last photo. This is Wainfleet Road. The southern side is on your on the right-hand side of the screen. That's where the proposed footpath will go. You can see that there's some existing street furniture in there already. And that is everything, I think. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lewis. We do have a speaker for this application, Mr. Chris Linley, who is the agent, and Danny Lang, the applicant's representative, will be sitting alongside to assist with any points of clarification which may be tabled following the representation. Please remain seated following the representation for any questions from the committee.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, and thank you for the opportunity to address you again in support of this application at Wainfleet Road, Boston. To recap, I'm Chris Lindley of RG&P. I'm a chartered town planner and the agent for the application. I'm joined this morning by Danny Lang, who represents the applicant. Following consideration of this application earlier in the month, we've carefully analysed the points of concern raised by members. We've also sought to engage positively with interested parties who made themselves known to us at the last meeting. This includes the Bowls Club and a local resident. Our technical response, is summarised in the deferral report prepared by Lewis, insofar as it relates to the 3 issues raised by members. From this, you will see that the Fire and Rescue Service have removed their objection to the development. In regard to the IDB drain to the south, a suitable easement is provided as part of the development. And in regard to the western boundary drain, this will continue to be managed in line with the riparian responsibilities, as it has been for many years. Drainage and the maintenance of it is rightly an emotive subject to the community. As a whole, this development will reduce the current runoff rate by 75%, and it will direct surface water flows from the western drain in favour of the southern IDB drain. The technical principles for this are already approved with the IDB and align in the wider sense with the firm fallback position established by the planning history on this site. Finally, we've confirmed that our development will also include the provision of an appropriate boundary treatment to the Bowls Club. This leaves me to reiterate that there is an acute need for affordable housing in Boston. Your support is paramount to the delivery of this scheme that will provide local people in housing need a modern, purpose-built and energy-efficient dwelling to call home. Your office has rightly advised that planning permission should be forthcoming, subject to conditions and a unilateral undertaking to secure the delivery of the affordable housing. The benefits of this development are comprehensive and compelling. The viability issue is well understood and has been correctly addressed in line with the Council's local plan policy. Given the baseline established by previous approvals and the information before you today, there will otherwise be no harm to any matters of acknowledged importance. and I respectfully commend the officer recommendation to you. Thanks for the opportunity to address you again this morning, and we'd be happy to provide any points of clarification as required. Thank you, members.
Does any member of the committee wish to ask Mr. Linley for any clarification in respect of the representation he's just made? All very clear. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Linley. You can now return to your seat. Do you have any comments, Lewis, that you'd like to make? No? Okay, thank you. I'll now open it to the committee for their thoughts and deliberations. Oh, we are doing well. Must be a very clear representation. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Whitcliffe.
Thank you, Chairman. I suppose I still have concerns about the ditch on the western side. I would worry about that. But I'm also concerned about the impact on the health services and the education services, which have been picked out in the report. So I feel that, as the report points out, the medical services are very badly stretched on that side of the town. And of course, it's going to have an impact on the schools. And the county council is quite right to ask for a contribution towards the the support of the schools. Otherwise, the cost falls directly on the main community as a whole. And the other aspect, of course, is the health side of things. Is that most of the practices in the town are heavily under pressure, and so therefore there's going to be no contribution towards the health costs either. So I still have concerns about this. Now I understand, of course, that as the report points out, that the Section 106 aspect of it is negated by the fact that the land value, or the cost of land value, as such as the calculation has been shown, is it rules it out. So I understand that, but I'm still feel that it's very unsatisfactory that 200 developments, 200 affordable homes can be built as such it is, without any contribution towards the health and the education services that they're going to depend upon. So, I mean, I still have concerns about it. And I understand the way the report's been written, and I appreciate what the officers have done, and they've laid it out very well indeed. And I understand that one rules out the other as such, but it's still a concern. So I'll have to leave it at that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Chair. I see it from a different point of view with the contributions to the schools. Before I was a councillor, I was a school governor for 7 years and a multi-academy trust trustee. And actually our primary schools aren't full. There are very few schools in the area that actually have full capacity of pupils. What this actually means is there's a financial impact to those schools. Can they afford to have the right amount of staff they need to keep that going? So for our primary schools, I've gone online and had a quick look. The 4 closest ones aren't full at all, with a 10 to 20% vacancy rate. So as that then moves up, only one of the secondary schools out of the 4 closest ones is at capacity or over capacity. As those pupils move up, then hopefully that will help out the schools, to be honest with you. So I completely agree with the no money towards the schools.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? No. Excellent.
Can I just come in with a point of clarification on the request that we've got for education? The request acknowledges that there's no that there's existing capacity at primary school level. The contribution request is to offset harms to secondary and sixth form provision, and that's the basis of LCC's objection. Is for committee members to decide whether or not they consider that harm to outweigh the benefits from the 200 affordable housing.
Okay, if everybody's had their say,
Councillor
Bedford. Councillor Bedford.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, Chairman. I'm pleased with the progress that's been made as far as drainage and roads and everything else is concerned. But in my mind, I still cannot support this on the 106 agreements, or lack of. At the end of the day, LCC and health don't ask for this money if it's not required. They really don't. And as far as I'm concerned, the farmer that owns the land and so on and so forth, if he, well, needs to sell it, wants to sell it, whatever the case may be, surely there should be an agreement come between the developer, farmer, where the developer's share can be shaved as far as profit is concerned, and the ownership of the land, whether that can be shaved. But I cannot support it without some form of 106 agreements, because it really is needed. I mean, the schools in that area are full. No ifs, no buts. You try to get down Tolfield Road in the morning, it's terrible. And so without that agreement, sorry, I can't support it.
Lewis?
Yeah, can I just brief point of clarification on the viability assessment? Benchmark land value, as I said, is it's a calculated figure based on a standard method set out in national planning policy. So it's not the figure that the developer would pay for the land. The developer profit in this case is much lower than we would typically expect to see in a viability appraisal. We asked, and the conclusions are that the development can't support contributions. Obviously, the committee is still entitled to come to a view regarding harm, but just in terms of what the viability assessment says, it's quite clear that it's quite clear that the information they have provided demonstrates that it can't support those contributions.
I'm happy to propose, Chair, because I think Boston is desperately in need of affordable housing, and I'm happy to propose this.
And I'll second it, Chair, as well.
So now we can go to the vote. So all those in favour? Against? 3, 4. Oh, hang on. Is that an abstention or a? I know.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
It's all right. We understand.
Yeah. So,
Thank you. And 1 abstention.
Yes, that's good. So that application now is carried, and the permission is granted in accordance with the officer's report.
Thank you, everybody. We have just before, as they switch off, I've just been asked. We have a new gentleman in the room today, Mark, and Phil. When we go offline, Phil is just going to have a couple of words. Thank you.